Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Thursday. Today's guests are brought to you by Optic Foliar. Spray it, see it, believe it. That's Optic Foliar. Visit this made in BC company online at opticfoliar.ca as we bring in, he's LA bound, from TSN, Farhan Lalji. How are you, sir?
Good. We love LA. Isn't that how the song goes?
Yeah. Randy Newman. I remember it well.
Right.
Also did a song called Short People.
I didn't know that.
he did a lot of songs
huh?
and soundtracks and all of that. Wrote a hit or two for Three Dog Night as well. You were at SoFi Stadium for the Rams win over the 49ers. You're going back there. But what was that experience like, Farhan?
Wow, what a stadium. You know, at the end of the game, they played We Love LA just like they used to do in the Laker days when they were winning their first titles with Kobe and Shaq. But just the building itself, you know, having had a chance to get to a lot of the new stadiums and even the old ones, right? Like I've always loved the experience at a place like Lambeau because it's just so much of a throwback, you know, and the new buildings they've built in Atlanta and Vegas. I've had a chance to see those in person, but this one, oh my goodness, like just this is a special building from the outside in because, you know, it's a translucent roof. You can see through it. The scoreboard, which just goes all the way around inside out, 2 levels of it. It's spectacular on so many levels.
Were there Rams fans there? And the second part of the question, and I've seen this live before, is there a team out there that that has a fan base that travels as well as the 49ers?
Well, you know, at the NFL level, it's hard to find, right? Like that's a collegiate phenomena, right? Teams traveling, and you've got to sell big blocks of tickets and have them available to visiting teams. And, you know, especially in the SEC, you go to these games and, you know, it's half Alabama and half Clemson or however it goes, depending on the opponents. And those fan bases travel. There's that kind of passion. And it's ironic because from a college football perspective, there's not a worse area in the Bay Area for fan engagement. It's terrible. But for the NFL, my goodness, the San Francisco 49ers fans, Niner Nation, you don't see that at the NFL level. And certainly there's a lot of those fans in Southern California for all those years that the NFL wasn't in LA. So I'm sure that's part of it. I don't think they all traveled, but I'll tell you, we tried to get into a certain hotel, completely sold out, mainly Niner fans. At our hotel, everywhere you went, I mean, it was a fairly, you know, big hotel, but in all the restaurants and lobby areas and everything, it was all red. So I think they said StubHub said 43% of purchasers on StubHub were from Northern California zip codes, and they estimated about 60% of the fans were in the stadium were from NorCal.
Yeah, it happens in Seattle, too, for a big Niners-Seahawks game through the years. Okay, Brian Flores, Farhan, I know you tweeted a lot about this. Racism at the coaching, management, ownership level, is it still a major issue in the NFL?
Yeah, it's a huge issue, Donnie. And you know, people want to talk about what this Brian Flores suit is about. And yeah, there's an element of race in it, but when you look at what he's actually attacking, it's the Rooney Rule, right? And the fact is the Rooney Rule did not serve him well in his interview with the Giants. It did not serve him well in his interview with the Broncos. Certainly the issues around Stephen Ross, I mean, that's more about tampering than it necessarily is about racism, right? So certainly I believe it's an issue in hiring practices. I don't know that like black people are being blackballed. It's a multi-layered issue, right? Because first you've got to increase the talent pool. So one of the reasons is that everybody's all about hiring that young, sexy, dynamic offensive coach. And they all come out of the Shanahan and McVay tree, and they all happen to be white, right? Where I looked at the numbers, I think 12% of offensive coordinators in the NFL are black. 34% of defensive coordinators, 34% of defensive coordinators are black, right? So there's a bigger talent pool on the defensive side, and these guys don't want to hire defensive coaches. But on top of that, the bigger problem in all of this is ownership, because ownership is more and more getting involved in the hiring of head coaches. So we're used to sports where, hey, owners hire GMs, or some cases owners hire presidents who hire GMs, who hire coaches. We know that every GM should get the opportunity to hire his own coach at least once. So if you come into a situation where the coach has been hired already, you get to go through this once. But it's not happening in football, right? You look at what happened in Minnesota, right? The GM wanted to hire Jim Harbaugh. Not a race issue, right? The GM wanted to hire Jim Harbaugh. The two men had a relationship. The GM himself is black. But the owner got involved and said, no, we want to hire this other guy, right? And that's happening more and more. Everybody wants to be Jerry Jones, right? Where he's basically owner, president, and GM. These guys don't want to get out of their own way. These guys know nothing about football. They're bringing in guys in tandem, GM and coaches together. This is not the way it should be done at the NFL level. Owners need to own and let GMs hire coaches, because if that happened, you'd have people with the clue hiring the right people.
Farhan, over to the BC Lions quickly. Free agency, I think, in, 5 days. They've done some good work. Whitehead, Burnham back. What's happening at the quarterback position? We know Nathan Rourke's going to be there, but they got to get somebody on the free agent market. Any names?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Trevor Harris as a possibility. I've heard maybe there's some less momentum around that. Matthew Shills is another name, depending on what happens with Nick Arbuckle in Edmonton, if Jeremiah Masoli goes there. There's a few names. It's not necessarily a big market, but, you got to make a decision, right? Like, do you want to spend in the mid-200,000s for a good backup, right? Because even if you incentivize that contract, you still have to account for it in your cap. Or do you want to spend additional money on linemen and receivers and other things to potentially improve the situation around Nathan Rourke? So, that's a tough line to follow and juggle. So we'll see where they go. But those are the main names, right? I mean, it's not a huge talent pool of experienced backups available and ready to go. So we'll see where it goes. But I'll tell you this, Rick, the Lions are spending big. Their names as a team have been tied to a number of other names. We know about Kenny Lawler, but, I'm hearing things about them being tied to bringing back David Menard, Steven Richardson from Winnipeg, the really good defensive tackle that they've got. Matthew Betts from Edmonton, really a high draft pick that had some NFL time before coming back. Like, there's a number of names that I'm hearing. Luches Purifoy. Like, this team has money to spend, and it seems like they are more than willing to spend it right now.
Okay, and the Lions have come up with some interesting seating arrangements for fans. We'll get into that later. Farhan, though, I wanted to ask you this. Our next guest is, and we're running out of time here, our next guest is Jim Burrow, father of Joe. Jim, of course, coached Joe earlier on in his life, in his football career. Are you aware of the impact at all? Can you give us a nugget as far as the impact that father had on son?
Yeah, I've had some discussions with Jimmy Burrow. Wally Bono actually connected us because the two men played together for Montreal, and he recruited one of my players when I was coaching at New West to Ohio. And then he decided to retire before Joe's senior year at LSU because he kind of wanted to follow that journey a little bit because he was a very accomplished defensive coordinator at Ohio. So you can tell when you see not only Burrow's preparation, but his demeanor, that he's definitely a coach's kid. He's got that confidence and swagger from having been around the game for a long, long time. Burrow was there sitting next to Ed Ogeron, the LSU coach, when Burrow won when Burrow's son Joe won the Heisman. I remember texting him after that and congratulating him. But he's obviously been completely involved in it, and he's got the respect of being a coach at a very, very high level. So now he's retired, so he can enjoy his son's journey. I'm curious if he'll ever get back into coaching because he was really, really a highly regarded coach as a coordinator.
Will we have you next week from LA? Do we know that?
Boy, yes. I hope so. Why wouldn't you?
Well, if he wants to get paid, obviously he's going to be here.
Poolside?
I'll do it poolside with a glass of Crown right here, Ricky.
Oh, perfect.
Well, yeah.
Perfect.
Well, not 10 in the morning, though. You don't want Crown in the morning.
Hey, he knows.
No, you don't. You're right.
Yeah, he knows. We'll call you LA from now on.
High noon.